This is Chris Bailey here. I've just finished the CISHRP 2017 conference in the Cayman Islands. Let me tell you, Joy Baldridge, powerhouse of a speaker, she gave us content we'd never heard before. We had the Baldridge bounce. We had the knock it out of the park words that you wouldn't normally use, and I sat there and stood there not wanting her to finish because the stuff she was saying had all of my audience just going nuts.
Anything's possible if you have the right formula. And words are containers of power. Words are containers of power. And anything is possible. I saw an Edison quote as I was preparing for this meeting. And what Edison said is, when you've exhausted all possibilities, remember this: you haven't. So I'm going to share with you some ideas, some inspiration. And words are containers of power. The only reason I'm even here is because of specific words. When my parents met, they met in New York City. My mother was from New York, my father was from Ohio, from a little small town farm in Ohio. My mother was a New York woman, and he was her teacher at a course that she was taking. He said he'd like to have coffee with her. She said, okay, she was interested, but he didn't dress very nicely, and he was all rumpled up, and he looked like a farmer. But she said, you know, there was something intriguing about him. They had the coffee. When they were done, I said, Mom, why did you go on another date with him? And she said, Joy, because when he spoke, jewels came out. When he spoke, jewels came out. And just to give you a little flavor for my father, after the date was over and he was walking away, my mother did the little glance. Do you know the glance? One last look at this man in the rumpled suit with jewels coming out of his mouth. And she said, you know what I saw? I said, what? She said, I saw this. Something clicked. So I'm hoping that something will click with you in the time that we have right now. Something click, some words that you can use. And words can be used for good or evil. My son, when he was 7 years old, he was very mad at me. I said, why are you so mad at me? He said, because you're piling too many activities on. You're talking about doing my homework, then I have to get my hair cut, then I have to go to sports. It's too much. And then he said something that astounded me. He said, Mom, what are you, nuts? I said, what are you, nuts? I said, we don't talk like that in our family. I'm very sensitive to words and how they're used because words are containers of power. And you know what he said? He said, okay then, what are you, cashews? He gets $10 every time I quote him because I believe in royalties. I believe that words are containers of power, and it made me laugh. And if it made me laugh and it makes you laugh, he earns the $10, right? So I'm going to share with you some words to help you abide by this policy of nothing left unsaid. The corporation that has adopted and adapted this policy is in the insurance industry. They have about 30,000 employees globally. And they said that it started with one small department and then they just kept growing. By studying the words, I realized that some have a positive effect and some have a negative effect. So I created a concept called the velvet hammer. And the velvet hammer is soft words, soft like soft velvet, that pack a punch and get results. So the velvet hammer words that I like the most are noticed and wondering, to open a conversation, and likelihood and when, to close the conversation. If you start a conversation, whether it's corrective feedback or whether it's positive feedback, you can say, I've noticed and was wondering. I noticed that you've been coming in early, and I was wondering, how is that going? How are you doing that? Because you used to come in late. What's the secret? What's the trick? I noticed that you've been coming in late, and I was wondering, why is that? Because it cannot continue, and I need your help. Right? Simple little words. It took me about 20 years to just explore and test out, and found that these were really the best ones that I've been able to come up with. And you might have some of your own that you like as well. So keep in mind that because words are containers of power, how are you using your power? Are you using it for the good, or are you not? And if you want to use it for the good, then nothing needs to be left unsaid. There's a concept I created called the spinach on your teeth concept. If you have spinach on your teeth, do you want to know or not it's still there, right? So if you're not telling somebody something that they are doing wrong, it's actually doing them a terrible disservice. And then if you wait too long, you can't tell them. And then it becomes kind of a joke that they're not in on. Do you see how destructive that can be? And so I challenge you, since anything is possible, to see if you want to be careful in the way that you select the words that you choose when you're speaking to anybody, and see if you can make them a little bit more positive, or use this formula of noticed and wondering and likelihood and when. So noticed and wondering I've given you an example of, but let's continue the course of action on the feedback. I noticed that you have been sick quite a bit, and you tend to call in sick on Fridays. I don't know what that is. And I was wondering how you can be absent less because it cannot continue. Now, because is one of the 30 most persuasive words in the English language. I know people don't know this unless they study it like I have. So you may want to understand the power of because behind because, whatever comes after it, is usually something that people pay a lot of attention to. And you is also one of those 30 most persuasive words. So if you use because and you use you, and you can use this with staff, you can use this with your team, you can actually use this up and down and even out with clients. This is very powerful. If you're in sales, for instance, you can say, I noticed I haven't spoken to you a while, and I was wondering when we can get together and catch up. That's how you can open it. As far as the closing of the conversation goes, what's the likelihood that we can work together? And when might that be? See how nice likelihood and when goes? So I noticed we haven't talked in a while. I was wondering when we can get together to connect. For instance, if you're talking to a potential client or a client, and then you close by saying, so what's the likelihood that we can work together and when might that be? It just works so nice. It's smooth, soft like velvet, but it packs a punch and gets results like the hammer. So the velvet hammer is soft language that packs a punch and gets results. Now think about when you're closing a conversation on feedback. The conversation might go something like this. So I was wondering, what's the likelihood that you can be less absent, and when can we start that? When do you think that can start? Can we start today? So these are just a few words and phrases that can help you. And you can also make a recommendation. I love that one. Can I make a recommendation? What are they going to say? No? Let's try it. I'll say, can I make a recommendation? You say no. Loudly. Can I make a recommendation? No. See, that doesn't feel right. Nobody's going to say that. So these are some of the velvet hammer words that I am mentioning. Your lanyards. These are great mementos. And if you put the golden nugget buttons on the lanyards, and you can put Bob inside. I've also given a quote card. So take a look at the quote card. You can open the quote card. It's near you. It just opens up, and there's a quote inside. I'll read you the quote that I got. It's one of my favorite quotes. It says, confidently walk in the direction of your dreams. Act as though it were impossible to fail. So if you confidently walk in the direction of your dreams and you act as though it were impossible to fail, you will be amazed at what can happen. They can go inside your lanyard too, and you can hang it up at the office, and it's a very nice memento, and it reminds you of the golden nuggets, the useful ideas. So what I'm saying is make your weakness your uniqueness, because when you make your weakness your uniqueness, anything is possible. And I will leave you with this. We were in the Stanford Museum and Nature Center, and we were at a pet contest, and all the pets looked the same to me, and I said to my dad, they all look the same, how are we going to win? And he said, let me think a minute, and the judges are going around the circle, and we had our guinea pigs, Lucky and Matilda, and they didn't look like they were faring very well with the cute little puppies and kittens. And so my father's he takes a piece of paper, he writes some words down, those magic words, he put it on the cage, and the judges walk by, and they smile, and then they announce the winners of the pet contest are Lucky and Matilda, the guinea pigs of the Baldridge family, who are here on their honeymoon. So when I say words are containers of power, I mean it. Make your weakness your uniqueness. Anything is possible. Thank you very much. Woo!
Hi, my name is Gloria McField-Nixon. I am so loving this CISHRP conference. Joy was absolutely amazing. Her remarks spoke directly to me. She gave me some great tips. Can't wait to take them back.
If you need joy in your life, she's your girl.
the precious little joy gems that I'm sharing with you today. So, you ready for some more? Say yes. Oh, great. And here, Lana, how you doing? Alana, come on back. Is the bag empty? Oh, you got a bag of bobs. Does anybody want a bag of bobs? You can throw the bag of bobs. Here, let's throw it. Here, you ready? Here comes the bag of bobs. Ah, bag of bobs. Woo! And you know what I call someone like you, Alana, who helps me out? What? I call you a hot potato. And in order to really be a hot potato, you have to wear the hot potato glasses. So you can put them over your glasses so you can still see. And you have to say, I am a hot potato.
I am a hot potato.
Can we clap for that? I have a badge that says, I am a hot potato. So thank you. You did a great job. Thank you so much. So when we talk about language, language is behavior, behavior is language. When we talk about language, I also come to mind a few words that I heard when I was under a lot of stress. You know those days when you're just so stressed out and everything's going wrong? Well, I had one of those days. I was in New York City, and I was visiting my Aunt Joan, who was 85 years old, with my 5-year-old daughter, Mackenzie. And in New York, you have to watch people like your family, and we're trying to cross the street, and my 80-year-old aunt's on this side, and my daughter Mackenzie is on this side, and I'm just being pulled, and then it starts to rain, and we finally make it back to Aunt Joan's apartment, East 76th Street, New York. And the doorman sees I'm completely frazzled. And I just looked at him, and he got me a taxi. He was a cute little old Irishman. And he looked at me with a twinkle in his eye, and he said, you know, sometimes in life, you've got to learn how to take the good with the wonderful. The good with the wonderful? This is not what I was experiencing, the good with the wonderful. I was experiencing the good with the miserable. And yet I remembered that words are containers of power. So maybe you can leave here and take the good with the wonderful. Because when nothing is certain, anything is possible. And that's what we're here to discuss, right? Anything is possible. When nothing is certain, anything is possible, as long as you learn how to function in disaster and finish in style. Function in disaster and finish in style. And you do that by being flexible and adaptable. I know when I spoke here 2 years ago, I imparted those words that according to Fortune magazine, you need 2 characteristics to have a job in this millennium. And those 2 characteristics are what? Flexible and adaptable. So if anything goes wrong, you can always do anything and make anything possible as long as you're what? Flexible and adaptable. That's right, because if you're rigid, you break, and what good is it to be broken? No good at all. And so when I was at the grocery store, and I'm always looking for language and studying language, and this woman is doing the bagging of the groceries. And this is back in the States, and she's doing the bagging of the groceries, and her name was Sue, I found out later. And I loved Sue because she took her job very seriously, and she was not just a bagger, she was also in customer service. And one day she had a pin on, and the pin said, I'm damn good. I'm damn good. So I said to Sue one day, I said, hey, Sue, are you good? She said, no, I'm damn good. Words are containers of power. Correct, correct. And so it reminds me of a quick story that there was a child, and he was in a terrible accident, and actually the accident was so severe it hurt his left arm, and actually his left arm had to be amputated. And it was in a martial arts book about how he persevered. So the only sport he could really do was martial arts because he was having a hard time with the other sports, and he was a sports fanatic. So he's trying to do the martial arts, and he keeps flipping all over the mat. And the sensei, his master from the martial arts, said, just make your move. I'm going to teach you a move, make that move. So over and over, he learns the same move over and over again. And what's wrong is that he feels like he wants to learn more moves, but the sensei said, no, just make your move, you can do it. He goes into a championship, he makes his move, and he wins. And he said, oh my God, how did I do that? He gets to the next championship, and he's flipping all over the mat, and the sensei says, make your move, and he makes his move, and he wins again. And he wins the whole state championship. So he was driving home with the sensei after this, and he said, you know what, did that guy let me win? He obviously saw that it was pretty easy to beat me. And the sensei said, you know the move I've been teaching you to make all these years? And he said, yes. He said, the only way that your opponent can counter that move is to grab your left arm. He didn't have one.